Welcome back to the Demo Day podcast. I'm Jackson Fordyce.
I'm Josiah Simons.
And we're here with our friend John Coogan. He is a founder of Lucy, founder of Soylent EIR at Founders Fund, YouTuber, and just received a brand new pair of Tecovas. John, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, shout out to our friends at Tecovas for providing our brother with some new shoes.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. A little taste of Austin.
Yeah, a little taste of Austin, Southern hospitality.
Thank you.
We come bearing gifts, and so that's kind of how we run our show a little bit.
Are they a sponsor or something?
No, we're just good friends with them.
Someday.
They should be.
Well, kind of. I mean, we did an interview with Paul. This is when I was still at Fortune 2 years ago with Josh, and we got to hang out with him. And dude, he's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's actually a really cool dude.
That's cool.
He went to Harvard for acting school.
Oh, that's right.
Acting at Harvard. And so we had one of our questions kind of towards the end. We were like, all right, dude, lean into the camera and give a monologue on how you would sell Tecovas to someone. And
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
He gives this insane monologue, and we never even posted it because
Yeah,
what do you actually want to talk about?
this is not a Tecovas podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all about John Coogan.
Yeah.
So
Let's go.
we were just talking about media and
Okay.
your YouTube channel.
Yep.
First, you can start about like how did that even start? How
Yep.
do you find time? Like diving so deep into these topics, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah. I don't know exactly. You can kind of tell two stories about, my path to YouTube. One is like, my parents worked in the film industry. I'm from LA, so it's like in my blood. Or the other one is just like, I was bored during COVID and like thought that Substack and podcasting was like a little bit saturated. And if I wanted to break through, I had to try a different medium.
Yeah.
And so, but I had a blog in college, and I'd hosted a podcast for a few episodes. I'd done media here and there. And my first company, our market entry strategy was viral owned content.
Yeah.
So the CEO's blog, he would post these like crazy science experiments that he ran on himself, and those would go viral, and that would generate millions of dollars in revenue.
And this one you're at Soylent?
Yeah, it's Soylent. So
Okay.
he did one where he didn't eat food for 30 days straight. That was like the famous one that like launched the company.
Oh, and just drank Soylent for
Yeah,
those 30 days?
I think he did another one where he like killed his entire microbiome, or like
the original
tried to
Mr. Beast.
he was, or like Ryan Trahan kind of.
Yeah.
It's very much. He did one where he lived, I think, off of no alternating current, only direct current.
What does that even
What
mean?
does that mean?
So it's a great way to like learn about electricity. So what comes out of the wall is alternating current, but there's a bunch of benefits, but one of the drawbacks is like you can't extend it for very, very long.
Okay.
Like you need a bunch of like repeaters if you're going to do that. And so like he had to like, live off like these like car batteries and like rewire his entire
How do you
house.
charge your phone?
And it's kind of an arbitrary thing to do, but if you're into electrical engineering, it's a very interesting like thought experiment and challenge. Like, how would you do that? Right. It's kind of like, have you ever seen those viral videos of like, I made a camera, but instead of running on batteries, it runs on like a V8 engine.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that?
And they come and murder you because you found out a way to make something without
Yeah,
gasoline.
yeah, exactly.
The government comes and finds you.
Or like you add gasoline back to something that,
Oh, yeah.
Or like there was one that was like a V6 powered drill. And so the guy's putting in like a tiny amount of gasoline. Very, very funny. So he was kind of making this like viral content. The first piece that he actually had go viral was he was teaching a graphing library, like graph theory, like how you see like nodes in a network. And he was teaching this software that's like a Python plugin or library. And he was using R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet as the example. So like all the relationships between the characters and Trapped in the Closet. And it's just like it's very non sequitur, right? Because most programming tutorials are like, we're going to build a to-do list. We're going to teach you how to build a Twitter clone. And he was like, I'm going to teach you how to map R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet. So that kind of stuff was like, he was kind of like Mr. Beast for Hacker News in some ways.
Yeah,
Very like viral, very non sequitur. And so I'd always kind of understood the power of content. And then during COVID was just bored and had free time for the first time in like a decade of entrepreneurship, because there were no like happy hours. There's nothing really going on.
Yeah.
And there was no social stuff going on. You weren't really meeting people if you worked in tech. Like there was Clubhouse and you meet people online, but it was very clear that like if it was a time where if you got louder online, you could actually like make friends and meet new people. So a lot of people were doing that on Clubhouse. A lot of people were doing that on Twitter, a lot of Substacks, a lot of podcasts launched. Obviously the All In podcast launched around that time. And I just kind of thought that it would be interesting to see like, okay, what if, we did the traditional take on, here's an opinion about technology, or here's the history of a company, but did it with kind of more of a YouTube native format. And so the video essay, which as typically been reserved for like film criticism or the history of video games. There's so many things where it's like, oh, like, here's the entire history of Mario. It's like an 8-hour video or something like that. Right. Or people just dissecting like the latest GTA game. Like here's a 2-hour essay on that. And I thought it was an interesting format, and no one had really brought that over to tech, or from an insider's perspective. There were a couple channels that would do like, oh, like history of Apple or something, but it was very much from like an outsider's perspective.
So it shows the medium that's like the most expensive and most like time consuming versus like podcasting or blogging. Or something like that.
Exactly. But it grew. It wasn't actually that expensive or time consuming at the beginning, because
like all the research you do for your videos though, and like the production value is
the first one, the first one was just like hot takes. It was literally just like what I was seeing on Twitter. I put all these notes into like into just a PowerPoint, essentially like a Google Slides.
Yeah.
And then I would just tab through the slides while I was on my webcam.
Okay.
And then I don't know if I uploaded that one. Maybe I did a second take, and I was kind of a gear nerd, so I enjoyed the process of like figuring out cameras and stuff and like adding that. And I also like motion graphics and taking what you designed in a PowerPoint and putting that into video format, essentially with like animated charts. But all of that was very much like, secondary. And I also like time boxed it at the time. So I'd only spend a day on it because I basically just had Sundays free, more or less. And so I'd just wake up, whatever topic was interesting. I'd do some research. I'd write a script. That would take about 4 hours. Then I'd record. That would take like 30 minutes. And then I'd edit, and that would take like 2-3 hours.
Dude, you move through that. I feel like it takes it so much longer to make any sort of content like that.
There's something powerful just about being on like a regular cadence and just holding yourself to like, no matter what I post. Like I even had a kid during this like original 1-year sprint, and I still posted. It was just a very short video, and it was like relying on a lot of other clips. It was like, it was actually about work-life balance. And it was like, here's what everyone in tech says about work-life balance. And so I was like, here's a 2-minute clip of Paul Graham. Here's a 2-minute clip of Keith Raboy. And so I only had to talk for like, a minute.
Background.
Exactly.
What they're about to say.
Exactly. And I mean, these videos weren't doing well at the time. I didn't really understand the algorithm or like how to set up content for success on YouTube for like a more broad audience, but I really enjoyed it. And it was really fun. Like something about like the pace and being on a cadence is really rewarding.
What was your first viral video that just like blew up and you were like, oh my gosh, I've got views all of a sudden?
Yeah. The very first one to ever like get served in the algorithm was, I think I had less than 1,000 subscribers. So I just remember like if it broke 100 views, I was like, nice, that's awesome. I didn't understand any of the metrics. I didn't even look at like click-through rate or AVD. Like most of those don't even populate if you don't get enough views.
Wow.
So you couldn't even see that to like really benchmark yourself. I would just be like, oh, I got one nice comment. Oh, someone in, Poland said that they liked the video. Like, this is incredible. Like,
good work, John.
Exactly. Like, it was just cool to be like, oh, there's someone out there that appreciates this. And the very first one was about SpaceX, and it was about a topic that a VC had told me like years ago that, like everyone gives Elon all the credit, and obviously he deserves a ton of credit for SpaceX, but in addition to being like a great engineer and a great CEO, he's also a great manager, and he hired Gwen Shotwell, and Gwen Shotwell is like a phenomenal leader of that company, and she's like under discussed. And so it hit a few different things. Like first off, like everyone likes looking at rockets. And so SpaceX, Elon is also like a name brand, like a household brand. Much harder to make a viral video about some small SaaS company that only people in tech know about.
Yeah.
And so it was like, anyone who's interested in rockets could talk about it. And I think it also like broke the assumption, like there's a lot of like Elon content on YouTube. There's whole channels about like Elon Musk Zone or like SpaceX News. and this framing was like Gwen Shotwell is like the secret mastermind, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously in the video, I'm like, well, it's a testament to Elon's hiring ability, but it was just interesting to tell her story instead. And I think people didn't see that. And so that blew up and got like 60,000 views, which was really big. And then later when the metaverse stuff happened, those started getting like millions and millions of views, which was the first time it went really, really big, because it was just something that was in the mainstream media, and like the daytime television was talking about the metaverse. Facebook rebranded, and because I was in tech, I'd been talking about it with everyone like months and months before. So a lot of the other creators that would cover this like broadly, like Marquez Brownlee or any of the like broader tech channels, they were kind of behind it, because the insiders in tech were talking about it when like Microsoft actually mentioned the metaverse before Facebook rebranded. And so people kind of knew that there was going to be this like VR resurgence, and there was a discussion about this in tech, but it took a while until Zuck rebranded to Meta that it like was like everyone needs to talk about this, even like the finance channels, even the, you know, consumer channels, like everyone needs to talk about it. And so just being early there with some really, and by then I'd like really figured out the format, really figured out like the thumbnails and all this stuff. And so this just went like mega viral.
Is that still true today, that you are able to be early on a lot of the tech, like what's trending, because of how just kind of like connected you are in this world? Or has the other creators caught up in terms of just ear to the ground?
Kind of yes and no. So I don't really try to be first anymore to these things. Like when GPT came out, like I made a video about GPT-3 like years ago. Like if I was trying to be like number one in the algorithm, like I would have made like a million GPT-4 videos and ChatGPT videos and like been the first one there. I kind of saw that happening and was just like, I don't want to be on that treadmill. Like I don't really care about that. I was kind of moving on to different formats and different topics and just interested in different things. And so I probably could be ahead of the curve there, but I'm not really playing that game anymore.
Well, because your history of Donald Trump video had like what, 1.5 million views, and it was a couple months ago. So I guess someone could say that's a pretty late video, but it still did super well.
Yeah. You know? So that's kind of the new strategy. The new strategy is like pick a topic that I think is interesting and really deep, and just try and make the best video about that topic. And so with the Donald Trump and Joe Biden videos, like there were like 10-minute videos out there, little breakdowns by like CNN or whatever. But I saw that like there was an opportunity to create something that was like twice as good as
a really deep dive.
Exactly. Just bigger, just better. And there are plenty of content pieces out there where that's not possible. Like, I don't think I could go out and make a better iPhone review video than MKBHD. It's just not possible.
I want you to make a video of all 50 presidents, because like,
cool.
I mean, deep dive into.
There's not 50 presidents.
Sorry. I meant the
close
states. I meant
you can do presidents of other countries. Presidents of companies.
That's right. We just
you didn't say U.S. presidents. You said presidents.
You did not listen to my question.
There are plenty of presidents out there.
I think I named 4 other presidents. Yeah, I just don't know what countries have presidents.
Yeah, they do.
You're rocking Pirate Wire's merch. Mike Solano's, I guess media outlet or news
media empire.
Media empire. Right. Yeah. What's the what's like the slogan? It's like the media is. It's on the website. I can't remember what it's called on there.
I thought it was just like we are the media now.
We are the media now. That's what it is.
We are the media now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I like that idea, but I don't know what that really means. Do you know what that kind of means? Like, we are the media now?
Yeah, I think it just means that there's the old line media, like the newspapers, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and they will eventually get to mainstream topics, and they eventually get to every topic. But I think what Mike Solano realized was that for certain tech topics, he could be the first one to get there with the most accurate analysis.
Got it.
And there are a number of independent media, like the Going Direct crew broadly, that tend to get to things earlier now. Balaji got to COVID first. Ben Thompson has been right on a number of tech topics, like the sell-off in Meta. He wrote this Meta Myths piece like right at the bottom, and it kind of reset the narrative on that stock. And he was clearly right on. He predicted the comeback before like a Bloomberg did, for example.
Right.
And Pirate Wires has done that a few times. One of the biggest ones was the Google. I don't know, just nonsense generally. A lot of stuff on like how their AI was generating historically inaccurate soldiers and stuff. You remember all this? Like, it was like very controversial. There's been a few of those pieces where he's like really, really broken through. And then also like the local reporting, I think, has been very good. Although I don't live in San Francisco, so I don't quite know. Yeah. But it does seem like the We Are the Media now is really just the fact that it's been like this whole concept of citizen journalism has been toyed with for a while, but it's finally arrived in the sense that it is possible for a podcaster to break news. Another good example would be when Zuck launched Llama 3, I think the number is the most recent one. He embargoed the news with Dwarkesh Patel and did his podcast to announce it. And then he also did a video on, he did an interview with a few like Instagram Reels creators, like independent people. They got the exclusives and the mainstream media were downstream of that, and they had to report based on the press release.
Yeah.
Wow.
which is fascinating. Typically, what you would do is you would say, hey, Wall Street Journal, hey, New York Times, I'm launching a big thing. You get the embargo. Let's do an interview. We'll do a big long form piece with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then down the road, I'll go and do Dwarkesh's podcast.
Dude, we've got a couple of those actually, where a VC or a founder or someone will say, "Hey, we just raised this X amount dollar fund.
Yeah.
Can we come on the podcast and talk about it?" And then we say, "Yeah, for sure, let us know." And then they just kind of delay it, or this one startup is raising their Series D, and we want to come on the show and just we'll break it
on the podcast.
On the podcast. It's kind of like there was a show you were on recently, and I forget her name. Like very, very recently, talking about going direct.
Lulu.
Yeah, Lulu. Yeah. Is that kind of similar vibes of going direct from like citizen journalism versus founders going direct to their audience? Or just the main idea?
Definitely related.
Okay.
I mean, I think the going direct thing is more for start. Like Lulu talks about it in the context of like startup comms.
Yes.
So how do you announce a fundraise?
Okay.
Should you try and go on a podcast and give the audience something bigger to chew on, or should you just do a TechCrunch article?
Right.
And a lot of founders are choosing to do, videos with Jason Carmen, or do, podcast appearances with someone, or just do a big thread on Twitter and watch it go viral. Like the Cognition launch, I don't think they did any, I think they wound up doing an Ashley Vance piece later, but like the launch itself was really just, they filmed their own video, their own demo. And then this was the Devon thing. I don't know if you remember this earlier this year, but they posted like this kind of thread with a couple video demos, and like that was enough to get millions and millions of impressions, and then all the media kind of came downstream of that, and they didn't have to work their way up through like, okay, groveling for a TechCrunch piece and then trying to get into Business Insider and then into Fortune and then into Forbes.
Or when you get into them and then you get the story that you're not expecting to receive, they spin in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. It's much harder on a 2-hour podcast, I'm sure you guys could edit this into something really bad for me, but it'd be very hard for you to do. And it's like your reputation, and it's just like it's so much trickier, right?
Clicks, right?
Yeah. So I guess like there is some overlap in the fact that going direct is built upon some level of like independent new media, citizen journalism, whatever you want to call it. I think when at least Balaji used the term citizen journalism, he's more talking about like an individual gets a piece of information and then can just like even with no audience, if you have a really, really breaking story, you can be anonymous. You can just go on Twitter, post a big thread, and if it's good, it'll get served in the algorithm. It'll go viral. People will dig into it. They'll investigate it, and then it will become major news. And so anyone who has a line on a story can now get it out. You don't need to work for a journalism outfit and then get established and then get published and like go through all that main channel, because the algorithm just amplifies things. You see this on YouTube all the time when someone sets up a brand new account and they have a really juicy story and it goes mega viral because the algorithm just serves it, right?
Yeah. Thinking about your YouTube channel and the fact that you talk about politics, you talk about tech, like my mind immediately goes to all of the tech billionaires that we're seeing right now endorse Trump, and this like techno optimist manifesto that comes out from Andreessen Horowitz. And what do they stand to gain? Like from your perspective, why do we see a lot of the tech billionaires all of a sudden turning conservative? Were they always conservative and they just didn't speak about that openly, or is there something they're standing to gain by endorsing Trump in 2024?
I don't know. I think the rightward shift is like a little bit overstated in the sense that if you look at the donation data, I wrote a piece for Powerwires about this where I looked at the FEC contributions, like the Federal Election Commission contributions of Midas list venture capitalists who work at venture capital firms. They're pretty split, and they're still like broadly venture capitalists lean left and always have. Silicon Valley, California leans left and always has. There has definitely been a vibe shift culturally around how acceptable it is to support Trump this election. And I think that was primarily driven by Joe Biden's age, in that it was very easy once we saw Joe Biden really falter on the debate stage to say, I'm not comfortable with this person being the leader, and so you can accept my my decision to support Trump seems more rational in left-wing circles.
Right.
And so there was a moment when Trump was more acceptable. Now that it's Kamala, it's kind of back to being controversial, but I think people have kind of normalized it. It's like, we already had him as president, made it through, like, oh, maybe it's a little kooky.
It was so
to
great
go.
for us during then.
Maybe it's a little bit edgy, but it's definitely not resulting in these like massive cancellation campaigns that happened during the 2016 election.
Yeah.
In terms of like what they have to gain, I think, it's never surprised me when a venture capitalist comes out as conservative, because Republicans have always been the party of business and venture capital is the business of business. And so it stands to reason that a venture capitalist would be conservative. And that's just kind of always the way it's been. So I think the Obama era was probably like the exception to the rule than really like, the default status. But I don't know. There's a lot of different things. There's, fears over taxes. There's different industries, there's different companies. Like, there are a lot of reasons to support a candidate if you have even just one business. Like, I knew a member of the Bush family who was a huge supporter of Obama because he ran a healthcare company, and Obama created Obamacare, which transformed the healthcare industry.
Right.
So it's like, if you're going to be a healthcare entrepreneur, supporting someone that's going to radically change the healthcare industry, and in this case it was a mandate for electronic health records. So all of a sudden the government says this technology must be purchased. Like, that creates a new market. If you're a technology entrepreneur, that's an opportunity. So I see that there's a million different reasons why you could support a candidate. Like, if you are some VC that specializes in like wall building, obviously you're going to support Trump. And I'm not exactly sure the most similar Kamala policy, but I'm sure there's something out there where you could look at a Harris proposal and say, that's going to be very good for my business. That's going to be very good for my portfolio of businesses. So that's why I'm supporting her.
Even like an American dynamism, like that whole, like, this big vibe right now, just seems so like it coincides with, being on the side of Trump.
Yeah.
But
I mean, at the DNC, Harris was like, we want the strongest military possible.
Yeah, that's true.
What is it about like the cultural moment of 2024 that allows these tech billionaires, who maybe have always felt this way, maybe this has always been their personal political preference, why do they feel more, not at risk, emboldened to speak on it today? Yeah, I mean, it's a few things. There has been a pretty huge vibe shift over the last 2 years. I think it kind of culminated with Elon Musk buying Twitter and rebranding it and really, really shifting the content policy in a way that, like, these cancellation campaigns that took place in 2016, 2017, what would happen would be someone would say something or someone would do something, and a very small account would quote tweet them or screenshot what they said and say, this is bad. But it was no one. It was like a citizen journalist type thing. But then these would get amplified and retweeted, and they would kind of grow. And then eventually a very small outlet could write about a story like the backlash on Twitter to X, to whatever. Yeah. And then once enough of the small outlets wrote about it, then they would be pressured to respond. And then the larger media outlets could write about the response to the backlash.
And it just snowballs.
Yeah, exactly. So Twitter was very much like where all the tech execs hung out, but also the journalists. It was like this big kind of cocktail hour for everyone. And so it was very easy for anyone to just like create the kindling to start a raging fire of like cancellation. And then eventually everyone says like, you have to apologize for this, or you have to, or you have to acknowledge that this is bad. And Elon really like broke that chain. And so it's very, very hard to start a groundswell. It does happen on TikTok, but TikTok is very focused on a different thing. TikTok is not focused on tech, certainly not like startup entrepreneurship, like that world. No one on TikTok knows that. I don't know who I guess like David Sachs endorsed Trump or something. They don't care. Yeah. Like that is a unique concern of Twitter and X. But and in 2016, it would have been a bigger issue, and there would have been more pressure because more people were on the platform. But when Elon bought it, a bunch of accounts, bunch of people just self-selected out, they left. And then a bunch of people got community noted, or they got banned if they were doing something really crazy. And so these like cancellation campaigns have kind of faltered now. And so it's much easier to, just go out there and say whatever, and you're not going to face reprisal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about Lucy for a second.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier how with Soylent, virality was a really big way of getting the name out there. Like you would do marketing contents to go viral. Do you have Lucy on you right now?
Of course.
I was gonna say,
yeah, pull it out.
Yeah, pull it out. Is that something y'all do nowadays? Like virality is so important to the brand, or because I really haven't seen any huge marketing pushes or campaigns for.
Yeah, virality doesn't work in tobacco because it's a 21 plus product.
Okay,
and you can't sell it to kids, and so you want to be much more targeted with your marketing, and so we do very, very limited marketing to very specific audiences.
What does that limited marketing look like, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's like podcast advertising to millennial dads, basically, like sports podcasts
so
and
much
stuff.
On Barstool.
Barstool,
yeah,
exactly.
Every time I watch something, we were watching a clip yesterday of Jersey Jerry. He popped in a Lucy.
Yeah, exactly. Like Barstool is, that was like the brand when I was in college, and a lot of those guys have grown up, and it's not exactly like the TikTok kids are following Dave Portnoy. I mean, I'm sure some of them are, but it's very limited. Okay. And so we try and be very narrow with the targeting. There might be a way to go viral. I don't think it's advisable, and I don't think it would.
It opens it up for so many lawsuits, like in the next 10 years.
Yeah,
like with Juul, right? It was like marketed kind of towards kids with these flavors, right?
Yeah,
that's like I used to work at this law firm, and that was one of the things they used to focus on. Was it's not really about the nicotine. It's more like you're advertising the children with these like bubblegum flavors, whatever the
a lot of it was like the broader category of e-cigarettes just became like so insane that there were like products that were designed to look like pencil cases and like very clearly targeted at kids. But yeah, I mean, I think the marketing that I do, like we do in a sense, this right now is a piece of owned media for
sure
for Lucy. But I do it in a more thoughtful way, and it's about like, setting a narrative and really like just creating just basically like addressing the facts and misconceptions and history of the industry, and trying to understand just how the industry works, because I think it's just like a fascinating industry, and it's very, very widely misunderstood.
Well, he hates nicotine so much. He wants to push back on that, actually.
Nah,
please.
He'll say things that are not true, that are opposite of true.
Okay.
But I do want to know, like, what is intelligent nicotine? What is that?
Yeah, I think the thought was my co-founder was quitting smoking. Cigarettes are pretty much the most deadly consumer product ever created. And so we kind of recognized that there was an opportunity to create a product that was not inhaled and didn't use the tobacco leaf, and that would remove a lot of the problems that were associated with smoking. And we also really wanted to focus on how can we target adult consumers in a way that would not feel medicinal, but would still have the same impact and result. So we sell a product that is a medicine. It's regulated by the FDA as a smoking cessation aid. It's a nicotine lozenge. It's very similar to Nicorette. And it's regulated the same way as Nicorette, in the sense that, it's the type of product that you would see on the shelves of a Rite Aid or CVS. And that means that it comes with a lot of like kind of medicinal packaging, honestly. It just doesn't feel like you're using a consumer product. It feels like you're using a medicine, because you are. And that product, I mean, it's done fine, but we thought that there was an opportunity to go a different path, mainly this tobacco products pathway, which is a different arm of the FDA. The FDA has a number of different regulatory bodies within it. And we realized that we could design a very similar product, not make quit claims, like not go to the consumer, like you'll never hear on, a podcast, oh, use this to quit smoking, but develop it intelligently with the same thought that would go into a pharmaceutical product, because that was kind of the background, and then ultimately try and win smokers over on the product benefits itself and the product qualities itself. And so we looked very, very seriously at what Tesla had done with electric cars, in the sense that there had been previous attempts to get people to switch away from gasoline cars to electric cars. Okay. And it was always based on guilt tripping the gas car user. You're destroying the environment. You need to downgrade from that amazing V8 Mustang,
Ford F-350
exactly.
diesel truck. You
need to downgrade from that to this car that gets 50 miles of range and does 0 to 60 in 20 seconds and it looks like, it's like, like it just looks like a mess, right? It's just like this
little car.
Yeah, it's just like this ultra rounded, like hydro. It's like very cute. Very cute and like and very like aerodynamic, and just like it doesn't look cool. And so I think the genius of Tesla was creating a product that could win on the things that people care about when they buy cars. So speed, acceleration, styling, self-driving, price point, like this is why people bought. And then secretly they would be like feeling good about themselves. Oh, I'm not killing the environment. And some people would, buy that just because of the environmental impact of going electric, but they were able to get people to switch over. And so we saw it as the same thing. Like how are the ways that we can beat cigarettes on price, on flavor, on strength, on, experience and discreteness and, the way you feel, all these different things. Those were the really important things. And that's what you see right now in the market, where a lot of adult smokers are switching to nicotine pouches broadly, our products, Zyn, obviously, lots of others. And they're switching only in part because they feel bad about the health consequences of smoking. They are switching almost more because of the other benefits. Mm-hmm. Their clothes don't smell. They don't get, laughed at. They don't get, hassled by friends and family. Like there are a bunch of other reasons. And so what we realized, and a lot of other people in the industry realized, was that you don't necessarily need to go someone and say, here is something to help you quit smoking. Yeah. You don't need to say that. And so that creates a different regulatory pathway and also a different product strategy.
Yeah. Huh. So would you say that this is a healthy alternative to smoking or to vaping, things that are going to have the carcinogenic effects on your body, whereas Lucy does not? Like, are you even allowed to make a statement like that they are healthy?
Yeah. So basically there's a few different tiers of authorization that you can get from the FDA. Okay. The one that I mentioned with the lozenge was, that is a drug product. That's kind of like you can think of it as like a third tier of nicotine, approvals. Okay. So we'll take you through the kind of three tiers. And that allows us to say that this product helps you quit smoking. It has a list of side effects. Cancer is not one of them. Yeah. Like there are some side effects to using nicotine lozenges that are FDA regulated as smoke cessation aids. I can't list them off the top of my head, but they're very minor. Yeah. And that's why these products have been approved by the FDA and they've been on the market for, 30, 40, 50 years. Mm-hmm. So that product, absolutely. Then with other products, there are two tiers of approvals. The first one is what's called PMTA. That just lets you sell the product. And the warning that you put on the label is this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Now, you don't have to put this product causes cancer. You don't have to put this product is a carcinogen. If you're familiar with California's Prop 65, it's a warning label standard. If you walk into a bunch of different stores, they will have to have a label there that says this facility processes some sort of chemical that causes cancer or birth defects. This product doesn't have that on there because the state of California has determined that nicotine is not a carcinogen and this product does not contain carcinogens. Therefore, we don't have to put that on our labels. So we, along with everyone in the industry, is working through the PMTA process right now, which will allow us to continue selling, but we won't be able to make specific harm reduction claims. Then there's kind of stage 2, which is the modified risk tobacco product, which will allow you to say this product is less harmful for you than cigarettes. And there's only been really one major product that's been approved for that. That's It actually contains tobacco, oddly enough. The whole industry is very, very wild. But have you ever heard of a product, General Snus?
No.
It's like, it's actually made by the same company that owns Zyn, Swedish Match, but it has tobacco leaf in it. So it does have carcinogens in it, but it has less carcinogens than cigarettes. And so the FDA has said that Swedish Match can make the MRTP claim, which is better for you than cigarettes, essentially. They can make that claim about that product. And so we are still a young company. We're still investing in regulatory approvals. And so we will move up this path slowly and surely and eventually be able to make all sorts of claims like that. But to start, like, you just have to, all you have to say about the product is this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Interesting. And we're running short on time here. So I'm curious, you have all these things going on in your life with the YouTube channel, with Lucy, with being with Founders Fund and this EIR role. How does the rest of the year finish for you, John? You feel like you do 1,000 different things.
It's interesting. I enjoy making content and will continue to do content. I've kind of switched into trying to do more guest podcasts like this. I feel like they're very high leverage. And so I'm still doing content here and there, but definitely experimenting with the format. I was doing these documentaries for a while. I was doing video essays. I think I'll probably do some sort of new format. I like this idea of going longer and deeper into fewer topics. That's very interesting to me. So I'll probably do a few of those. And then Lucy has been growing significantly this year. So there's a lot of work to be done there, whether it's on the manufacturing side or just all sorts of stuff. There's like a million different things going on. So I've been focused there. And then, I mean, the Founders Fund team is awesome. I love working with them. But it's very undefined. I do a lot of different things and it's kind of just flexible. So, kind of just take what comes, mostly focused on
good non-answer,
just making good content.
I
don't really have like a firm
open to a lot of
strategy for the next year. It's like I know what I'm working on, but there aren't that many clear milestones, if that makes sense.
Have you ever made a video about Lucy? And okay,
I made one a long time ago about
everyone buy it, try it.
It's the greatest
Not
product
that
ever.
Actually. It was more just like behind the scenes of like how we shoot ads and stuff. It was just like a fun, cool, like just experimental video. I want to do more about the tobacco industry and the history and kind of all setting the narrative straight about a lot of these companies. And like, there's so many misconceptions. Like people think Zyn, or people think, honestly, people think Zyn is banned because of the Washington DC thing, which did not happen. That was just a subpoena. They just kind of reacted by taking down their website, but that doesn't mean that they're off the market or whatever. I talked to a guy at a corner store and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's banned now." And I was like, "It's not." I
can go buy one like right now.
But like, this is my competitor, so I guess
they are banned.
Yeah, definitely. Like, never buy it again for your store. But I mean, like most people believe that Juul is banned.
Yeah.
And that ban was reversed like very, very quickly. In fact, the FDA actually went back and accepted their application. And so now they're reviewing it and people in the industry expect that it'll be authorized. And so it's very interesting to see kind of like, how these stories evolve when there's like an intense amount of media focus in a very short amount of time. And there's not a lot of time to get all the facts straight, or things just turn into memes, or they kind of grow. And then there's things that certain companies can't say for legal reasons and it goes back and forth. But I think it's just a fascinating industry. So I want to talk more about that.
If we have you on again, which we will.
Thank you.
We can set the record straight
if you say yes.
The tobacco industry and how we've gotten to where we are. And I think we'd love to hear that story and bring that to our audience, because I think I don't know that much about it. That's really interesting.
I feel like longer form stuff, especially with you, since I feel like a ton about a lot of different topics. I wanted to like go into geopolitics.
Let's do a 10-hour stream.
10-hour stream. Oh yeah, we'll go on Twitch.
Pretty great.
Thanks for the comment there. And then also before we leave, I have two last shorter questions.
Please.
If you have a prediction for venture markets towards the end of this year into 2025, and if you have a prediction on who will win the election this year.
The first question, what do you mean by that prediction for venture markets?
Yeah, like if you, or I guess in venture,
like a certain sector,
like what's something that's gonna be really hot, people will be investing in the next 12 months. I feel like these last several have been like defense tech heavy, AI for sure in the past like year plus. But what's the next thing?
I don't know. I think energy is really interesting. I've just done some deep dives on nuclear companies, but there's a lot of people working on different stuff.
The fusion video, yeah.
Yeah, I did a fusion video and then I did a fission video, both like small reactors, different approaches. There's a lot of people working on solar stuff. Energy just feels like one of the last really huge markets that doesn't have a new power law winner, in the sense that like SpaceX in aerospace, Anduril in weapons, obviously AI, like there are a lot of like 10 billion plus companies, but there isn't like a startup around energy necessarily. Maybe you could say Tesla a little bit with the batteries, but there, in terms of energy generation, there hasn't been a new company to really break out there in a power law $100 billion company type way. So I think a lot of people are focused on that, rightly so, and just interested in that. And if you talk to a lot of people in AI, they're like, okay, well, the foundation models are important, and then the GPUs are important, and the data centers are important, but the final thing that's important is the energy generation. And so how are we going to do that? And that's why Sam Altman's investing in Helion, the fusion company. And it seems like that could go more mainstream if the scaling laws hold and there is more demand for AI compute and larger data centers. So I think that's an interesting area that could be one of focus over it already is, but it could continue to be. And then there's like an overall story in venture markets just about consolidation of power into like a few winning firms, because in the ZERP era, there were like 1 billion firms. Anyone could raise a $50 million fund. And so a lot of those funds are like dying off now because they underperformed or they bought bad assets. And so there's just a lot of funds that are winding down or getting smaller, and then the bigger funds are getting bigger. And so there's kind of this, I don't know if it'll be like a commodification of capital, but there's certainly going to be like fewer bigger firms and more of a power law distribution amongst venture. And I think we'll just kind of see that trend continue through the end of the year. These funds take a long time to wind down. I mean, the startups that were overfunded in the ZERP era, like, are still running on fumes. Like, we're not seeing that many bankruptcies. We're seeing some odd, there's some odd acquisition or some odd recap, but with the exception of like the really crazy poorly managed firms, like most companies that were overfunded in 2021, 2022, like they've been able to kind of coast. But eventually the chickens will come home to roost. And then eventually that will take a toll on the portfolios. Your second question was,
if you have a prediction on who will win the election in November.
I don't. It's really tight right now. I mean, have you seen the poly market right now? It's like 50-50. I don't know.
Well, then just say who you're voting for.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know about that one either, dude.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, Trump had like so much steam when he was going up against Biden in the assassination attempt, with like the poly market was really, really strong, and you could feel that like
61-39.
Yeah, it was really,
right after that happened.
really, really high. And now it's neck and neck. I mean, a lot of like the pundits that I follow are kind of wondering if like all the crazy energy around the Harris campaign will continue. But I mean, it's unclear that there's that much time for it to fizzle. Like, it's such a dramatic plot twist, and just in terms of like storytelling, like the assassination attempt wasn't a plot twist. It was very much like raising the stakes. Like, this election is super important, and people are clearly very emboldened about this and animated clearly about this candidate, and it is divisive, and it's very complex, but it wasn't a plot twist. But Biden dropping out and Harris stepping up, like, that is a true plot twist. It's like the final boss is not the actual final boss. And so that just has created this like immense like mimetic power to like understand like who this person is, and there's so much energy. And I understand that, like, she could kind of falter, but mail-in ballots are going out pretty soon. Like, if the polls are where they are, like it could be over, but I really don't know. I just follow Polymarket. I just open that all the time, and that's what I assume.
Awesome.
That's right.
Dude, John, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you look into that camera, tell people where they can find you: Twitter, YouTube, anywhere else, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, following me on Twitter, X is probably best, just at John Coogan.
X, I always say Twitter, dude.
Yeah, I gotta step it up.
Sure, man.
Respect to the big guy.
Respect to the big man upstairs.
All right. Thanks so much, John.
Appreciate it, John. Thanks again.